Spiritual energy recovery plus superpowers plus decisive killing plus IQ online plus no knife throughout the process. The purple star has descended, and heaven and earth have undergone tremendous changes. Under the eerie power, the blue star underwent earth-shattering changes. An evil ghost-faced spider the size of a grinding wheel, an impenetrable iron-armored centipede, like a three-headed dog from hell that has emerged from the underworld. What is even more frightening is that some organisms have actually experienced a phenomenon of returning to their ancestors, gradually evolving towards mythological creatures. In this era full of chaos and slaughter, humanity can only huddle together for warmth and struggle to resist in the long night. Wu Ming woke up hundreds of years later and unexpectedly awakened his devouring ability. Swallow vampire mosquitoes and awaken blood-feeding skills. Not bad devouring the sword prayer, awaken the double blade skill. It looks very hanging the sacred beast vermilion bird. Take it as you please. Damn it, what kind of skill is this? Chapter 1. A Dream for a Century. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Leaving the city, outside the city. On the vast gray-black land, a small mining site stands alone. Occasionally, miners dressed in rags enter and exit the dark underground mine. On their faces full of suffering, they could only see numbness and lethargy, like walking corpses. A figure carrying a heavy basket full of or walked lightly out of the mine. This is a teenager. Unlike other yellow-skinned miners, the young man may not be considered robust, but his figure is extremely symmetrical. Especially those clear eyes, especially lively. Wow! Pouring the ore into the designated location, the boy clapped his hands and breathed a sigh of relief. Wang Wu glanced at the small mountain under the boy's feet, and the corners of his mouth twitched. 160. The sound of air conditioning and admiration echoed one after another, mixed with laughter of schadenfreude. Huh, bring it over, I won. I've already told you all, but I still don't believe it. I'm willing to give up, hurry up. A man who looked like a thin bamboo pole and had significantly better clothes than a miner laughed proudly. As if afraid of default, he reached out to grab the money from his companion. This is too abnormal. A whole 160 baskets don't rest, isn't it human? The companion who lost money cursed and was secretly shocked in his heart. Humph, do you think his title of Barbarian Ox is for nothing? When this kid first arrived, the skinny bamboo pole, who had won the money, was in a good mood and started boasting with his companions. He has really won a lot by utilizing his youth during this period. Wang Wu glanced at the thin bamboo pole in the crowd, pretending not to see it. After all, everything is done under his command, and as long as it does not delay the mining progress, he generally does not interfere too much. Watching the young man put down the bamboo basket and walk, Wang Wu couldn't help but smile in his eyes. Taking out a thin booklet in his arms, he casually threw it over. Okay, it took me a lot of effort to connect it. Wu Ming quickly reached out to catch it and complained softly. Be gentle, what should I do if I break it? After speaking, disregarding Wang Wu's teasing, he vigorously wiped his hands on the tattered clothes. I casually found an open space to sit down. He didn't rush to look first, but first took out a relatively clean gray cloth from his pocket. After opening, reveal the red candy block inside, pinch a piece and put it into your mouth. As the sugar cubes melted, I immediately felt strands of heat spreading throughout my body. Restoring the tired body. Wu Ming nodded in satisfaction and carefully collected the gray cloth. I just flipped through the thin booklet in my hand. The above content immediately attracted him. 312 years ago, in 2025, a purple star descended from the sky. The eerie power quickly swept across the entire world. Satellite malfunction, network paralysis. Many organisms quietly underwent evolution before this great change in heaven and earth. The grindstone-sized ghost-faced spider, the ferocious and cold-blooded devil praying mantis, and the mountain giant beast with a body size like a small mountain. In situations where most thermal weapons were unusable, countries fell one after another. Faced with a racial crisis, the high-level officials in China made a decisive decision and turned the tables on the ground. According to the 8 trigrams, Qian Nan Kun Bei, away from Dong Kanshi, established 9 giant cities. Chaos City sits in the center to fight against terrifying monsters. However, this helpless act of huddling together for warmth only allowed humanity to barely survive in the long night. After hundreds of years of struggle, it is no longer the peaceful and prosperous era that Wu Ming remembered. A few pages of paper slowly unfolded before his eyes, a bloody and tearful history of human struggle. Sigh. This world is not peaceful. After a while, Wu Ming regained his senses and grinned, feeling a bit toothache. He has a secret in his heart, which is that he is not a person of this era. To be precise, he came from over 300 years ago, before the purple star descended from the sky. The last memory is sleeping during class, but when I woke up, it was already a matter of time. No one would immediately accept such a bizarre experience, but it has been almost half a month since I came to this world. No matter how helpless Wu Ming was, he could only admit that he was not dreaming and really couldn't go back. The place he is currently located is outside the city, which is one of the 9 giant cities. Closing the booklet in his hand, Wu Ming stood up. The man in front of me is named Wang Wu, who is in charge of this mining site. According to Wang Wu, there is a more detailed history about that dark era in the city. But it's not something he can come into contact with. At this moment, the sky gradually darkened and the people inside the mine walked out one by one. This is your reward for today, count it. Wang Wu drew out several deep blue banknotes with exquisite patterns. Perils abound outside the city, and wages are paid every day. After all, no one can guarantee whether they will see the sun tomorrow. Wu Ming reached out to take the money, and the sense of solidity between his fingers made his heart sink. Not less, but more. This goes against common sense. Sure enough, Wang Wu sighed helplessly. This mine is of little value anymore, we won't be coming from tomorrow. Although Wu Ming had anticipated it earlier, he never expected it to be so fast. Thank you very much, Uncle Wang, for taking care of me during this period. He nodded and didn't say much. Looking at the young man's distant figure, Wang Wu opened his mouth but ultimately did not say anything to persuade him to stay. Although he admires Wu Ming, appreciates the politeness of young people, and appreciates his amazing endurance and resilience. Unfortunately, he was well aware that he was just a dog raised by the big shot above. Who is qualified to manage these people outside the city? Since the construction of the 9 giant cities, the inside and outside of the cities have been completely separated into 2 worlds. The gap between them is equivalent to heaven and hell. After leaving the mine, Wu Ming couldn't help feeling a bit disappointed. Outside the city, it's not easy to find jobs that are well paid and relatively safe. Of course, the prerequisite is having his perverted physical strength. Thinking of this, Wu Ming couldn't help but put his mind deep in his mind. Skill. Devouring level. Current status. Cannot be swallowed, cooldown remaining 4 hours, 35 minutes, 52 seconds. This is the text that inexplicably appeared in his mind after he crossed over and fused the original owner's memory. At first, with a trying attitude, he killed a vampire mosquito. As a result, by devouring its corpse, it truly awakened its skills. As my gaze shifted downwards, another paragraph emerged accordingly. Skill. Blood-eating level. D. Current status. Advanceable. Suction cup of blood leeches. Through this period of experimentation, Wu Ming roughly studied the role of the blood-eating skill. Simply put, one can quickly replenish physical strength by consuming blood. Of course, it may not just be about replenishing energy. Because every time he takes blood, he feels exceptionally energetic. The previous red candy bar was a disguise that solidified pig blood. This is also the fundamental reason why Wu Ming has unlimited physical strength. As for the advanced skill status mentioned later, he has a rough guess in his mind and needs to verify it in the future. What is expected is that the devouring skill is about to cool down. Next, he can acquire another skill. Night quietly descended, and Wu Ming walked with a gust of wind under his feet. Since awakening the blood-eating skill, Mom no longer has to worry about walking and panting. He suddenly stopped and his gaze fixed. Not far away, a huge black shadow hides in the darkness. Click click click. The dense chewing sound is exceptionally clear in a quiet environment, which is chilling. Seemingly sensing someone behind him, the black figure slowly turned its head and revealed its true face. Ah! This is an ugly monster that looks like a sandworm. It's just 100 times bigger than what Wu Ming remembered. Underneath it lay a mutilated human corpse. It seems that most of it has been nibbled on. The monster's open blood bowl was filled with sharp fangs of arm length in circles. There is still a bloody human colon hanging on it. Damn it! Wu Ming felt his scalp explode instantly. It's like being drenched in a cold winter by a basin of cold water, freezing from head to toe. Such a bloody scene, crazily impacting the vision, made his stomach churn. If it weren't for the wrong occasion, you would have to spit it out. Squeak. The giant sandworm discovered new food and screamed excitedly. Crawling and running with a plump body. Run. Wu Ming's mind flashed with thoughts and he ran away. Chapter 2. Mysterious Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On a deserted wilderness with few human footprints. Two figures, one big and one small, ran wildly in the night, carrying a trail of smoke and dust. Damn it, I'm unlucky enough to drink cold water and stuff my teeth. First, I inexplicably came to this damn place, and then I was chased by a bug. It's endless. Feeling a loud roar coming from behind, Wu Ming couldn't help but feel grief and anger in his heart. Running and cursing loudly. If the situation permits, he really wants to carve the word miserable on his face. At this moment, Wu Ming's legs seemed to fly and he didn't dare to turn back. Although possessing the blood-eating skill, it is not without limitations. After multiple verifications, he learned that although the blood-eating skill can maintain physical strength at its peak by consuming blood, but they cannot exceed their own limits, so their physical fitness is particularly important. Fortunately, after awakening his skills, Wu Ming intentionally exercised his body and was willing to spend money to buy meat to eat. Otherwise, with the weak chicken body of the original owner, it really wouldn't be able to withstand such intense running. Feeling a sharp depletion of physical strength, he took out the rag in his arms, grabbed a handful of blood clots, and stuffed them into his mouth. Bang 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 bang. The blood clot was chewed up in a few bites. Mixing saliva down the esophagus, it turns into warm currents. Wu Ming was like a car refilled with fuel, with a sudden surge in speed. I felt the roar behind me moving away a bit. He just had some leisure time and glanced back. Amidst the thick smoke, the plump body of the giant sandworm chased closely. At the same time, a piece of information comes to mind. Extraordinary creatures. Cannibalistic sandworms rank. Medium level weak point. Heart. This is another ability he acquired after traveling. Automatically identify monsters and display their weaknesses. Mid-level. Wu Ming was not too surprised by this. The vampire mosquito that was finally beaten to death before belongs to a low-level extraordinary creature. And this cannibalistic sandworm has clearly become stronger by more than one level. My mind suddenly turned and I immediately had an idea. He plans to lead the monster behind towards the direction away from the city. The city is heavily guarded with troops stationed, and the monsters behind cannot survive. This move to drive away tigers and swallow wolves is likely to punish Wu Ming. But compared to Xiao Ming, that's just a follow-up. Actually, it's safer for him to escape towards the mine. But considering the people like Wang Wu, they may not be able to deal with the monsters behind them. So he subconsciously doesn't want to do that. So, one person and one beast staged a midnight soul chasing. 10 minutes later, looking at the only 3 blood clots left in his hand, Wu Ming's face turned unusually ugly. Miscalculated. Previously, in order not to attract attention, he only carried a small cloth bag of blood clots every day. I ate a lot while mining during the day, and the intense running just now was even more astonishing. At this time, there is still a short distance from the city, and there is absolutely no time at this speed. Wu Ming was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. Forcefully suppressing the uncontrollable panic in my heart, contemplating other ways to save myself. He knows that the more times it is, the more it is necessary to remain calm, otherwise he will only die faster. Unfortunately, in the face of an absolute power gap, any strategy is futile. After the last blood clot is consumed, Wu Ming, whose speed had noticeably decreased, was gradually caught up by the cannibal sandworms behind him. It's over. At this time, the cannibal sandworm was also full of anger. This despicable food has kept it chasing for so long that it will have to swallow it in one gulp after a while. As one person and one animal got closer and closer, the foul smell behind them made me nauseous. Just when Wu Ming thought with grief and anger that he was going to return to the furnace and rebuild, a slender figure, holding a snowy long sword in the darkness, descended from the sky. With a clanging sound, the long sword struck the ferocious mouth of the cannibal sandworm, emitting a crisp sound of gold and iron strikes. The cannibal sandworm let out a painful cry and suddenly leaned back. A body weighing hundreds of pounds was forced to stop. At the same time, the slender figure was also recoiled by the tremendous force, spinning in the air and landing lightly. "What are you doing in a daze? Why don't you run quickly?" The girl whispered, her gaze never leaving the monster in front of her from beginning to end. Ah. Oh. Wu Ming woke up from a dream and realized that he had been saved, so he quickly ran away. I didn't run far, but I couldn't help but stop and grit my teeth before turning around. In the field of vision, the girl looked 16 or 17 years old, with an extremely tall figure. The black windbreaker rustled in the evening breeze, emitting a cold and ethereal aura. The high and upright collar obscures most of the delicate appearance. The cannibal sandworm shook its huge head. The place hit by the knife was filled with blood flowing like grass juice, which was extremely disgusting. I only heard it roar and charged towards the girl with a loud roar. Oath to devour and crush this despicable two-legged creature alive. The girl's expression remained unchanged, her gaze fixed on the threatening cannibalistic sandworm. Slender and powerful thighs, curved to a thrilling curve. After the monster approaches, it instantly straightens up. Whoo! The strong wind swept across the face, and the young girl's green silk danced like flying. Narrowly avoided this fierce collision. At the same time, the long knife in hand flipped over, leaving a wound on the body of the carnivorous sandworm, and blood spread out. Squeak! The cannibal sandworm couldn't stop its shape and rushed out more than 10 meters away. The consecutive injuries made it even more angry, rushing wildly towards the girl. And the girl is like a fairy under the moon. Every attack of the cannibal sandworm was narrowly avoided by her. And leave wounds of varying depths on his body. The most dangerous time was when she almost dodged against the plump body of the carnivorous sandworm. Watching it made Wu Ming's heart skip a beat. Compared to the calm demeanor of a young girl, the madness of a cannibal sandworm is like a mocked bull. After once again distancing herself, the girl's expression suddenly became solemn. I saw her holding her hand high, with a snowy long sword that was longer than a regular weapon. In an instant, the moonlight in the sky seemed to be attracted by a long sword. The surroundings suddenly lit up quite a bit. Shit! As the girl swung heavily. A huge crescent, measuring in length, cuts through the barrier of air. He plunged straight into the head of the sandworm, rushing horizontally. The mournful screams echoed through the suburbs. The ugly head of the cannibalistic sandworm was almost split in half. Green mixed with white viscous liquid, splashing like a fountain, shocking to the eye. Despite suffering such a fatal injury, this monster did not die on the spot. The girl's face slightly changed and she jumped over the sandworm. With his body facing downwards, he coldly inserted the long knife into the wound, piercing straight into his heart. Then he turned the handle of the knife fiercely. The screams abruptly came to an end. The monster, which had just been ferocious, stiffened and collapsed, making a dull noise. Everything returns to tranquility. Wu remained in place for a long time. This is Crescent Sky Chong. He trembled all over. I feel like the door of a new world is slowly opening before my eyes. At the same time, the doubts in my heart were also dispelled. Yes, since even animals and plants can evolve. As the spirit of all things, humans have no reason to be left behind. In thought, the sound of footsteps rang out. Wu Ming instinctively raised his head, only then could he see the girl's face clearly. Exquisite facial features and facial features combined to create a breathtaking beauty. Beautiful black hair, casually tied with a ponytail. Under the black leather shorts, a pair of slender and fair thighs swayed brightly, making people unable to take their eyes away. Compared to the girl she had a crush on in her past life, Ban Hua was almost like an ugly duckling. Remember, everything you see tonight must never be talked about to others, otherwise. The girl said coolly. During the conversation, the long sword returned to its sheath, indicating a clear warning. Oh, okay, I definitely won't say it. Looking at the delicate and pretty face of the young girl, Wu Ming nodded repeatedly. Confidentiality, I understand. He even thought that the other person would take out the camera and snap it at him. Due to the girl's black attire, Wu Ming recalled a famous movie from her past life. Thinking of this, the corner of his mouth curled slightly. The girl didn't say much and turned around to leave. I don't seem to be worried about how to handle the body of the carnivorous sandworm. Chapter 3. Cooling completed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This script is not right. After Wu Ming murmured, he had no choice but to smile. Since ancient times, heroes have saved beauty, but now they have been saved by beautiful women as soon as they cross over. Calm down, Wu Ming cautiously approached the corpse of the cannibal sandworm. Looking at the split head, I muttered to myself. Is this the strength of superhumans? What a pervert. But I have devouring skills, so I may not be weaker than them in the future. His eyes flickered slightly, filled with longing for the future. You have been chasing me for so long, causing me to lose face in front of beautiful women. I will devour you next time. Damn it, it's so sturdy. What did this guy grow up on? Because there are too many huge carnivorous sandworms, Wu Ming originally meant to bring back only a piece of sandworm meat. After tossing around for a long time and putting in a lot of effort, he still couldn't get a piece. Looking back on the battle just now, she was as powerful as a girl. It was only after using the huge moon blade that the monster was chopped open. Forget it. Seeing that things cannot be done, Wu Ming regretfully gave up decisively. Worried that the bloody smell would attract other monsters, he dared not stay any longer and quickly left. About 20 kilometers away from the city, there is an abandoned small building. Wu Ming walked through the rusty iron fence and climbed the stairs with heavy steps. After returning to the dark and narrow cabin, I didn't even bother to take off my clothes. Fall straight onto the cold and hard bedboard and fall asleep in 1 second. Today's experience is too complicated. From learning about the history of this world for the first time, to mine shutdowns, and finally being chased by cannibalistic sandworms. So both physically and mentally, he felt deeply exhausted. Even if the devouring skill is about to cool down, Wu Ming can't muster any energy and plans to talk about it tomorrow. In a daze, he had a dream. In my dream, I stood on the mountaintop, surrounded by ugly monsters. I can't see the edge at a glance. Some of them are terrifying beings as large as mountains, with a ferocious and imposing presence. Being among the monsters, Wu Ming's expression was unusually cold. As the screen turned, countless monsters roared and rushed towards the mountaintop, ready to tear him apart. A complex black rune that looked extremely eerie appeared at the center of its eyebrows. Suddenly, a terrifying suction appeared. In the roar of fear, anger, and despair, the monsters showed no resistance. Transformed into a torrent, submerged in runes that seemed like black holes. As the monsters were constantly being devoured, Wu Ming felt full of strength. It seems that one punch can pierce a hole in the sky and unexpectedly awaken many abilities. Flames, lightning, storms, cold ice waving hands is the power of destruction. Just as he was immersed in this intoxicating power, the sky suddenly darkened. A golden dragon head, piercing through dark clouds like ink. Cold and emotionless vertical pupils looked down at him. Under the terrifying pressure, a majestic dragon roar sounded, and countless golden thunderbolts poured down. Wu Ming looked up at the sky, under the thunderous destruction of the world. Feeling a strange anger in his heart, he refused to give up and raised his fist to the sky. Electric light is like a waterfall, thunder is like a drum. Golden thunderbolts were shattered one after another. But Tianlei seemed to have no end, and in the end, he could only reluctantly disappear into the punishment of heaven. Who? Wu Ming sat up suddenly and found that the sky outside was already bright. He reached out and rubbed the center of his eyebrows. The dream from last night was so real that I can still vividly recall it now. Wu Ming didn't feel that everything in his dream was ethereal. The most powerful proof is the black rune that appeared in his dream, and the first time he devoured a vampire mosquito. The eyebrow center looks exactly the same. Does it have any meaning? Wu Ming frowned to himself. Forget it, have breakfast first. He jumped off the bed board, unable to understand. Feeling the hunger in his stomach, Wu Ming felt like he could eat a cow now. I habitually scanned the information in my mind and found that the state below the devouring skill had been changed to devourable. Finally cooled down. He casually took a few bites and brought his supplies, holding a long-handled steel shovel. Push open the door and head towards the previously planned location. A lush green lawn, inhabited by various creatures. It has formed a small ecosystem. Wu Ming carried a double-shoulder linen bag and held a steel shovel, searching for the destination of this trip. Before coming, he made a special trip to the place where the carnivorous sandworm died last night. As expected, the body had already been taken away by someone. Wu Ming speculated that it was mostly done by her teenage companions. This place is not far from his home, it was carefully selected by him. The last time I chose to devour the target was too hasty. So this time Wu Ming has made up his mind to choose extraordinary creatures with only stronger points. Buzz. A fist-sized, emerald green bee with a sharp long needle on its tail. Falling on a large pink flower not far away. Extraordinary creature. Green bamboo bee rank. Low order weakness. I strongly dislike the smell of golden oranges. The information in his mind brightened Wu Ming's eyes. Hee, good luck. Just you. He spat 2 mouthfuls on his palm, and just wanted to kill the big bee with a shovel. Accidentally, his gaze swept and he noticed many other green bamboo bees nearby. This scares Wu Ming enough. 1 or 2 is fine, but a large quantity must be explained here. He trembled and moved his steps backwards, then changed direction after leaving. However, the goddess of luck seemed to have split legs and mercilessly abandoned him. Throughout the morning, Wu Ming was searching for a target. Either the target is too dangerous, or if you act rashly, the risk is too high. Either the target is too garbage, like the decay fly he just encountered, he didn't even think about eliminating it directly. Otherwise, after devouring it, you will gain a I fucked my brother's skill, which will make you nauseous. The cooldown time of devouring skills is neither long nor short. It's okay if you don't know for the first time, but you must be cautious every time you do. Wu Ming even planned a rough skill combination prototype in his mind. Just like playing online games in my past life, I strive to be versatile without any shortcomings. Feeling tired, he took out a tube of pig blood and drank it, quickly replenishing his strength. After testing, Wu Ming found that taking blood directly had the best absorption effect. Previously, the reason why I chose the form of sugar cubes in the mine was mainly to avoid attracting the attention of others. If he drinks blood directly, he is afraid of being caught as a vampire. If only it could be like in my dream. Wu Ming sighed heavily. The target of the devouring skill can only be the corpses of extraordinary creatures. You're right to think about it, otherwise I would have cared about your lower and higher levels like I did in a dream, directly devouring the matter. Then he must evolve directly into a prehistoric giant Kuan, invincible in the world. Soon, Wu Ming's physical strength returned to its peak. He was about to search for the next target, but was attracted by the nearby movement. In the waist-high grass, there are 5 spiders the size of washbasins with pale ghost faces printed on their bellies. Facing a crystal-clear green praying mantis. Wu Ming quickly fell down upon seeing the situation, afraid to disturb the other party. This extraordinary creature of this size is enough to threaten his life. Extraordinary creature. Ghost-faced spider rank. Low order weakness. Abdominal grimace, extremely afraid of fire extraordinary creature. Knife mantis rank. Medium level weakness. Waist, surprisingly, it's mid-level again. Wu Ming's face showed a surprised expression. To sum up, this is the second mid-level extraordinary creature he has seen besides the cannibalistic sandworm. Both sides in the standoff clearly showed some impatience. The battle is imminent. Chapter 4. Skills, Double Blades. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Squeak. The ghost-faced spider couldn't help but scream. Walking with 8 sharp long legs, charging towards the sword mantis from several directions. At the same time, his abdomen bulged, and a white spider web spat out from his mouth. There was no fluctuation in the bright eyes of Dao Tang. Like a calm swordsman, waving his massive forelimbs. In a few strokes, the seemingly tough spider web was twisted into pieces. After a moment of delay, 5 ghost-faced spiders were approaching. The sharp long feet, regardless of order, pierced all over the body of the sword-praying mantis, causing Wu Ming's heart to tighten. Next second. She. The knife's light is like electricity, and the remaining limbs fly horizontally. In Wu Ming's shocked gaze. 2 ghost-faced spiders were instantly cut into more than 10 pieces, and their limbs scattered all over the ground. The remaining 3 ghost-faced spiders also lack arms and legs. He kept emitting a mournful hiss in his mouth, as if telling of his physical pain. Wu Ming's pupils contracted. This is the strength of mid-level extraordinary creatures. Compared to it, the lower order is simply a flash sale. It's not that the ghost-faced spider in front of us is weak, but in fact, among lower-level extraordinary creatures, the ghost-faced spider is relatively strong. Not only are spider feet sharp, but they can also spit out spider webs to bind enemies. Much more powerful than the vampire mosquitoes devoured by Wu Ming. As for vampire mosquitoes and scavenger flies, they can only be considered the least powerful among extraordinary creatures. Even if ordinary people are prepared with weapons, they can still kill. The seriously injured ghost-faced spider let out a strange cry and dispersed in all directions. Under threat to life, spider webs spew out like they were dying. Just to buy time to escape. A spider web fell from the sky, and although the speed of the praying mantis was fast, it only had time to tear apart most of it. Unexpectedly, I was entangled by the remaining spider webs. Opportunity. Wu Ming's eyes were full of brilliance, and his figure instantly exploded. Pick up the steel shovel and take a few steps to come to the front of Dao Tang. At this point, the praying mantis has not yet broken free from the spider's web. Because he was afraid of the terrifying combat power of the creatures in front of him, he only dared to maintain a safe distance. Swung the steel shovel and slashed heavily towards the slender waist of the sword-praying mantis. Bang! I saw him spitting ink-green juice from his mouth, clearly suffering a considerable injury. Take advantage of your illness and take your life. Regardless of his physical exertion, Wu Ming swung the shovel vigorously. With more than 10 shovels in a row, he struck heavily at the fragile waist of the sword-praying mantis. Finally, it was cut in half. Who? He sat on the lawn with a fart, his steel shovel falling to the side. My chest fluctuates violently, my heart beats like a drum, thumping and jumping. The process just now seemed brief, but it was actually extremely dangerous. Once you make a mistake, you are likely to be killed on the spot. If it weren't for the sudden outbreak of ghost-faced spiders entangled the praying mantis and Wu Ming's prior knowledge of its weaknesses. Middle-level creatures cannot be killed so easily. I took a few hard breaths. Wu Ming is once again grateful that he has been strengthening his exercise and significantly improving his physical fitness since crossing over. Otherwise, it may not be possible to kill the sword prayer. Now is the time to harvest the fruits. Wu Ming's face couldn't conceal his joy, so he stood up and walked forward. I plan to remove the spider web from the body of the praying mantis first. The main reason for doing this is to worry that if we devour it together, we will awaken the skills of the ghost spider. That would make you want to cry without tears. Be careful and make no major mistakes. After being busy for a while, Wu Ming was surprised to find that the spider webs, which were thick and thin, were exceptionally tough and could not be pulled. No wonder it can trap such a powerful sword-praying mantis. He took out a knife from his backpack, and with great effort, he cut the wrapped zongzi like a cobweb. The body of the sword-praying mantis, broken in two, was exposed. The whole body was emerald green, crystal clear, as if carved from jade, making his eyes intoxicated. No matter how beautiful it is, it cannot be eaten as a meal. Wu Ming resolutely activated the devouring skill. The mysterious and complex runes slowly appeared in the center of the eyebrows. Just one glance can confuse one's spirits, giving rise to a feeling that even their souls are about to be devoured. During the rotation of the rune, an illusory beam of light shot out. I saw the body of the praying mantis quickly disintegrating into more than 10 green dots of light. Finally, following the beam of light, it disappeared into Wu Ming's eyebrows along with the rune. Skill. Double Blades level. See current status. Advanced, Teeth of the Flame Wolf, Front Paws of the Three-Eyed Demon Leopard, Wings of the Wind Falcon, C. Level. Looking at the newly acquired skill level, Wu Ming suddenly had some enlightenment. That is to devour extraordinary creatures of different levels, and the awakened skill levels are also different. Does this mean that in the future, if you devour higher level extraordinary creatures, you can still awaken stronger skills? Of course, he can only think about it now. This time killing the sword prayer is considered a big mistake, and this kind of opportunity may never be encountered again in the future. As for the advanced text, it also caught the attention of Wu Ming. He remembers that after the blood-eating skill, there was only one thing called the blood-eating leech sucker. 3 materials, are they branches of the evolutionary tree? Forget it, let's just ignore it for now. Wu Ming looked at his newly awakened skills and was somewhat eager to try them out. Double swords. The name should be related to the dual-wielding weapon. He touched his chin and secretly guessed. Unfortunately, I only have a small knife in my hand. The devouring skill has fallen into a cooldown again, lasting 14 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 52 seconds. Just like last time, it happened to be half a month. After looking at the sky, I realized it was getting late. After packing up his things, Wu Ming returned to his original path with a happy mood. The original owner's residence was an abandoned old building. The mottled walls were riddled with holes and seemed to collapse at any moment. There are piles of garbage everywhere around. Flies and mosquitoes flock together, and the environment can no longer be described as poor. From afar, Wu Ming was stimulated by the foul odor and sniffled. In the eyes of the people inside the city, the outside is synonymous with chaos, filth, and lowliness. Every year, a large number of people not only die at the hands of extraordinary creatures, but also suffer from diseases, armed conflicts, rape and murder. Which happen every day here. Cover your nose and be careful to avoid any obstacles on the ground. As he got closer to his residence, his eyebrows couldn't help but furrow. It's too quiet. Although this place is more than 20 kilometers away from the city, outsiders rarely come here. But the residents here also go out to search for food, but today they didn't see a single one. Wu Ming quickened his pace and planned to go home and withdraw all the money. Just choose 2 high-quality steel knives. In this chaotic world, having no self-protection power is too passive. Just as I stepped up the corner of the stairs on the first floor, a rustling sound suddenly came from behind. Suddenly, he had a bad premonition. Looking back, several spiders the size of washbasins with terrifying ghost faces on their bellies rushed over first. Ghost-faced spider. Wu Ming blurted out and quickly ran up the stairs without saying a word. Just now he was wondering why he didn't see anyone. Now it seems that there may be more misfortunes than good. Just ran to the 3rd floor, there was a familiar dense noise coming from above. Originally, there were no less than 10 ghost-faced spiders that came upon hearing the sound. It's over. Both his life paths were blocked, and Wu Ming couldn't help but regret not being cautious enough. When something goes wrong, evacuate decisively. I wouldn't have stepped into this desperate situation now. Squeak. Seeing the prey, the ghost-faced spider excitedly hissed. Some even jumped up and rushed towards Wu Ming, with the white ghost face on their abdomen clearly visible. Wu Ming was about to make a desperate attempt with a steel shovel when the iron door behind him suddenly opened. A large hand covered in thick hair grabbed his shoulder and pulled him into the room. With a loud bang, the iron door slammed shut. Isolate the angry screams from the outside. Chapter 5. Double Knives Showcasing Power. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In a dilapidated room of approximately 50.60 square meters. Wu Ming stood still in shock, his eyes scanning and realizing that there were actually many people inside the house. Sitting or standing, with a uniform selection of firearms in hand. There was a hint of playfulness in the eyes that looked at him. Thank you. He turned around to thank a man with a face full of flesh. Although these people may not seem like good people at first glance, they ultimately saved him. Butcherly, you saved this kid without everyone's consent. Are you going to give us an explanation? A young man with yellow hair on his head sat on the sofa with his legs open. At this moment, he was staring at Butcherly with sharp eyes and a very unfriendly tone. Yeah, it was so dangerous just now. If we put that group of spiders in, we wouldn't have been exposed to seedlings. Do you think so, Fong? Brother. A woman with heavy makeup hanging on her yellow hair said sweetly. Sensing the unfriendly gazes of others, Butcher Lee's face trembled with fat and quickly explained. Fong, I'm not just thinking about having more people and having more hope to go out. And I think this kid has a good physique, so he shouldn't be dragging his feet. Huang Mao's face softened slightly after hearing this, feeling that Li Butcher's words made some sense. He raised his hand and pointed his gun at Wu Ming, then chuckled. Kid, you were lucky just now, but you must come out later. If you agree, stay, otherwise I'll kill you now. After speaking of the safety button, the black muzzle was aimed at Wu Ming. Wu frowned subconsciously and disliked the threatening attitude of the other party. But as someone is under the eaves today, he can only nod in agreement. It seems that the opponent has a considerable number of people and sufficient weapons. Follow them and you may not be able to break through. As for the belongings at home, we can only look for opportunities to come back and retrieve them. Seeing Wu Ming being sensible, Huang Mao felt proud in his heart and smiled maliciously, saying, "We have limited weapons and haven't given you anything, do you have any objections?" After listening, the others couldn't help but laugh out loud. Fighting that group of monsters with bare hands, I'm afraid it's difficult to keep a whole body. Faced with everyone's ridicule, Wu Mingwei hung his head. A cold color flashed in my eyes, but I didn't make a sound. "Feng, you forgot, don't we still have 2 weapons left?" The woman saw that she had not been successfully provoked before, and with a twist of her eyes, her heart was filled with malice. Huang Mao followed her gaze and couldn't help but brighten his eyes. He clapped his hands and said, "Not bad, I forgot about it if you didn't say it. You're lucky, kid. Go get it." After discovering Wu Ming standing still, his expression suddenly turned cold. "Brother Feng is talking to you. You are his mother deaf." A one-eyed man saw the situation and stepped forward to slap Wu Ming on the back of the head. The tremendous force made him stumble forward a few steps, and his embarrassed appearance made several people laugh at the same time. Feeling a sharp pain in the back of his head, Wu Ming felt a strong killing intent in his heart. He took a deep breath and clenched his fists tightly. Amidst the teasing gazes of the crowd, he arrived at a cabinet. After seeing the weapons inside, Wu Ming was clearly stunned and almost couldn't control his expression. I saw 2 long knives lying quietly at the bottom of the cabinet. The blade is straight, with a long handle and a sharp cold gleam on the edge. It resembles the Tang sword from my past life impression. It's really like someone giving pillows when you're dozing off. He suddenly felt a sense of absurdity. For others, the weapons in front of them are definitely far less useful than firearms. Especially against extraordinary creatures like the ghost spider. But don't forget that Wu Ming has just awakened his double sword skill. His eyes changed slightly, in order not to arouse suspicion. Intentionally pretending to be angry, but actually feeling excited and touching the handle of the knife. A touch of familiarity arises naturally. The rough handle of the knife seems to have become a part of the body at this moment. Wu Ming took a closer look and realized that there seemed to be nothing special about it. Gone. Aren't you at level C? Not to mention the 40-meter sword spirit, why don't you even have sword energy? Damn it. He felt 10,000 alpacas roaring past his head, almost unable to hold his expression. We can't delay any longer, be prepared. Seeing that the iron gate was about to break through, Huang Mao was too lazy to bother with Wu Ming anymore and stood up with a serious expression. The one-eyed man took the lead and led the others to the door. Charge! He let out a loud roar and kicked open the already dilapidated iron door. Pick up the gun in your hand and shoot wildly. Da-da-da-da. The ghost-faced spider guarding the door collapsed instantly. Ultimately, it is still a low-level extraordinary creature, with a fragile body that is difficult to withstand bullets. A few people didn't stop and cleaned up the ghost-faced spider that came rushing up the stairs. Wu Ming woke up with a start, didn't hesitate, and hurriedly stood up. As soon as I arrived outside, I saw Huang Mao and others standing in place. He looked up and his expression immediately froze. On the empty ground, clusters of ghost-faced spiders gathered. At first glance, there were hundreds of them blocking the way out from all directions. Isn't this like poking a spider's nest? Butcher Lee struggled to swallow and spit, his voice dry. Damn it. Huang Mao's expression suddenly became fierce and he cursed loudly. The number of ghost-faced spiders outside far exceeds imagination. With the ammunition reserves in hand, it is absolutely impossible to charge out. Oh my goodness, what should I do? A woman with heavy makeup loses her beauty, and her sharp voice makes Huang Mao restless and restless. Without hope of survival, several people suddenly lost control of their emotions. Huang Mao was also out of control, and suddenly a hint of strangeness flashed in his eyes. Shut the fuck up. Huang Mao roared loudly, intimidating a few people. There is still a chance of survival in this fight, staying here will definitely lead to death. Butcherly, take this kid forward and the rest of us will cover up. Huang Mao commanded with a calm tone. The calm posture infected everyone around who was about to collapse. Okay. Butcherly forcefully suppressed his fear and nodded in response. He didn't think much, after all, a few people are now grasshoppers on the same rope. There is no benefit to Huang Mao in killing him. He shook the gun in his handshake and reminded Wu Ming not to fall behind. He picked a direction with fewer ghostly spiders and rushed over. Wu Ming always felt that something was wrong, but the urgency of the situation did not allow him to think too much. A fiery snake shot out from the muzzle, and a ghostly spider rushed in and knocked over a large area. The death of their companions did not deter them, but instead aroused more anger from the ghost-faced spiders. On the way out, Butcherly and Wu Ming immediately noticed something unusual. Because there was no expected firepower support later on. Looking back, I found that Huang Mao and a few others had abandoned two of them and broke through from another direction. Damn it! Li, the butcher, was so angry that he jumped and cursed loudly. Even foolishly, he understood that the two were being used as bait. Wu Ming's face was also gloomy, and anyone who was played with would not feel good. He lowered his head and glanced at the knife in his hand, his eyes flickering. Now the two of them are in a dilemma, and it's too late to change direction. I can only grit my teeth and walk all the way to the darkness. Kaka. Not far away, the gun in Butcher Li's hand suddenly went silent, causing him to fall hard to the ground in anger. His mother a bunch of dogs. Motherfuckers. They didn't give good goods at all. Pulling out the mountain axe behind him, Butcherly was no longer afraid. I saw him smile freely and say loudly. Kid, today our master and I are going to fall here, but we're not alone on the road to the underworld. We have to kill enough. He let out a roar and swung an axe to chop off the ghost-faced spider that was surrounding him. The ghostly spiders behind seemed endless and despairing. They were about to be killed by the ghost spider on the spot. At this moment, Wu Ming-chan, who had been following behind him, took a breath and took 2 steps towards Li Butcher. With a slight tremble in his body, he lifted his 2 knives upside down and drew them out. Shit. The blade passed by, and the oncoming ghost-faced spider instantly shattered into pieces of meat on the ground. At this moment, Wu Ming seems to transform into a swordsman who has been practicing swordsmanship for decades. The cutting speed is not only fast, but also extremely clean. Shit. Puff. With a knife piercing into the ghostly face of the spider's abdomen. Wu Ming's arm trembled, and the ghost-faced spider hanging on the blade exploded into a ball. Spider silk drifted down from the sky. In the field of vision, the two of them were 5 meters empty, with no more ghost-faced spiders. The power of the twin swords is so terrifying. The scene remained silent. Even the vicious and cruel ghost-faced spider seemed to be intimidated. Butcherly opened his mouth wide and twisted his neck bit by bit. My eyeballs are about to pop open. Chapter 6. Ghost Spider King. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 7. Is about men, be tough. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The consecutive injuries made the Ghost Spider King roar and develop a sense of retreat. This extraordinary creature of this rank has already achieved a high IQ. Seeing the man about to bow again, the ghost spider king suddenly looked up and screamed, and an invisible sound wave surged. Wu Ming felt as if his head had been hit hard by a hammer, and he let out a painful groan. Subconsciously reaching out and touching, the front of the nose was damp and hot. The man was also affected and his movements were delayed. The ghost-faced spider king seized the opportunity and his plump abdomen suddenly swelled in a circle. Immediately after, an inexplicable number of ghost-faced spiders shot out from below their abdomen, hissing and killing the man. It looks like at least 1,000. Be careful. Wu Ming's facial muscles twitched slightly, with a painful expression reminding him. Faced with a dense swarm of ghost-faced spiders with their mouths open and their fangs exposed, the man's expression remained unchanged. At this moment, a bald man suddenly jumped out of a soil slope. Holding an exaggerated firearm made up of dozens of metal barrels. The person is still in the air, aiming at the surging group of ghostly spiders. It is a sweeping shot. Da-da-da-da. The dense gunfire echoed in unison. In the excited expression of the strong man, large patches of ghost-faced spiders were torn into pieces. Da-da-da. Gunshots roared and limbs shot everywhere. After everything had calmed down, there were only a few dozen scattered ghost-faced spiders left, which were extremely miserable. The strong man threw down the scorching red weapon in his hand and laughed heartily, saying, "Delightful." Wu Ming's eyes froze when he saw the situation. In the field of vision, the bald man is clearly over 2 meters tall. Tiger-backed and bare-waist, with muscular knots all over, full of the beauty of strength. He reached out and pulled out the blue dragon Yenua blade behind him, his eyes full of war intent, shouting, "If you're a man, be tough." After speaking, he leaped forward with all his might and held up his zhang'er big sword to chop towards the ghost-faced spider king. Hiss. The ghost-faced spider king let out a roar and waved his intact long feet to greet him. Bang! The bald man trembled all over, his body suddenly retreating. Plow 2 deep grooves on the ground with both legs. After using the handle of the knife to stop his body, the strong man was not surprised but happy. "Enjoy it, come again." I only heard him roar. His already robust body skyrocketed once again, surpassing 3 meters in height. The blue veins on his arms swam like small snakes, waving a big knife to kill. Bang! 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 Every collision emits a thunderous roar. This can all be compared to the Hulk. Wu Ming stared blankly at the bald man who looked like a madman, his eyelids twitching. What a pervert. The butcher, who had not yet run far, was also attracted by the sound of the battle. After circling around, I sat next to Wu Ming and enjoyed the human-animal battle. He is actually a chicken thief, knowing where the safest place is. Drink. At the height of the battle, the bald man let out a loud shout and his arms swelled in an instant. The muscles were tight like small hills, and with a big knife, they flipped over. From bottom to top, with the momentum of teasing the sky, forcefully force open the remaining long feet of the ghost-faced spider king. Make the door wide open. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, a firelight like a shooting star penetrated the ghostly face of the spider king's abdomen. But the man who previously held a silver giant bow took action. The ghost-faced spider king's body stiffened, and a large hole suddenly exploded in his abdomen. Exposed a large ball of spider silk inside, as well as undeveloped ghost-faced spider cubs. Whoosh! Whoosh! Without giving it any chance, 2 flame arrows shot out one after another. The terrifying attack power directly pierced through its massive body. The ghost-faced spider king collapsed with a loud roar. "Are you also extraordinary?" The man with a majestic face approached and gazed at the two of them, speaking softly. He has a pair of deep blue eyes, looking in his 30s. The facial lines are rigid, like knives, axes, and chisels. Absolutely the killer of those blooming girls and mature young women. Butcherly looked bewildered and didn't understand what the other person was talking about as an extraordinary being. Wu Ming had a vague guess in his heart. A transcendent is a person who transcends the realm of ordinary people and possesses various magical abilities. The man had a gentle smile and patiently explained. Compared to just a few arrows that killed the ghost-faced Spider King, resembling the image of a god of war. At this moment, the man's warm demeanor made the two of them somewhat uncomfortable. Seeing the two people admit, the man lightly patted his forehead and smiled apologetically. By the way, I haven't introduced myself yet. I am the captain of the leaving city night watch, Divine Arrow, and this is the deputy captain, King Kong. Hello everyone. Kong Kong touched his bald head and grinned, revealing his teeth that were all white. Night watch. It sounds very tall and upscale. Wu Ming and Butcherly exchanged glances, both seeing confusion in each other's eyes. The man ignored their small movements and continued. Are you willing to join the night watch and contribute to the protection of humanity? This time, the two of them understood. Wu Ming couldn't help but fall into contemplation. He is now eager to understand the history of 100 years ago, what exactly happened, and whether there is any connection with his travels. Since the other party is so powerful, the organization behind them must be strong. Joining them is definitely better than blindly searching outside the city like a headless fly. So he didn't hesitate too much and agreed. The Divine Arrow was delighted in his heart. He values this young man the most among the two. Although I didn't see it before, how the boy broke out of the encirclement of the ghost-faced spider swarm. But its clever interception of the ghost Spider King's strike left a deep impression on the Divine Arrow. This not only requires strength, but also the kind of big heart that can make the most correct choice in the face of adversity. Welcome to join the Night Watch. Seeing that Butcherly also agreed, a smile appeared on Shenjian's face. King Kong, go and see if there are any survivors. He turned to the strong man and said. Okay. King Kong nodded in response and rushed into the dilapidated building with a big knife. All the ghost-faced spiders encountered on the road were cut in half by him. Divine Arrow looked at Wu Ming and asked with concern. Are you okay? I have healing medicine here, and the effect is quite good. Speaking, he took out a transparent hose from his pocket, which contained green ointment. Upon seeing this, Butcherly quickly took it and carefully wiped Wu Ming's hands and arms. After a moment, the still bleeding tiger's mouth suddenly stopped, and the pain in the arm also eased a lot. Thank you very much. Wu Ming was amazed in his heart and sincerely thanked him. At the same time, I secretly felt fortunate that I didn't choose to resist hard just now, otherwise it would be troublesome if I injured my bones. Divine Arrow nodded lightly, indicating that there was no need to care. A few minutes later, King Kong rushed back and shook his head towards Divine Arrow with a gloomy expression. Several people remained silent. All right, it's been long enough since we came out, it's time to go back. The Divine Arrow glanced at Kong, who immediately understood and strode away. In no time, accompanied by the roar of the engine, a black off-road vehicle rushed over. A sudden brake stopped steadily in front of a few people. Get in the car. King Kong poked his bald head out of the driver's seat, took a sip of his cigar, and urged. After the three of them sat down, King Kong stepped on the gas pedal all the way, carrying a few people quickly away. Chapter 8. Hound Detective Office. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the car, amidst the roar of the engine, Butcherly occasionally glanced at the cigar in King Kong's mouth, swallowed his saliva secretly, and asked loudly. Captain, what do our night watch company usually do? The strong wind in front of him made the fat on his face tremble uncontrollably, and his eyes couldn't even open. However, what embarrassed Butcherly was that the Divine Arrow seemed to have not been heard, with a cold and aloof image. It's completely different from the warm invitation just now. The King Kong, who was driving, glanced at Butcherly and took the message. The main task is to deal with extraordinary incidents that the police cannot solve. Once you officially join the Night Watch, you will naturally know. Extraordinary events. Well, aren't we officially joining now? Lee Butcher realized something was wrong from the words of King Kong and exclaimed in shock. What kind of beautiful thing do you think? Being a night watchman is a vegetable market. If you want to enter, you can enter. Kong Kong sneered. In the heartbroken gaze of Butcherly, he spat out half of the cigar burning in his mouth and continued. You are only qualified now, and you must complete the team entry task later to be considered a formal member. Task for joining the team. Butcherly became even more confused and instinctively said. What if we can't finish it? King Kong slowly twisted his neck from the driver's seat, revealing his pale teeth, and smiled. Believe me, you wouldn't want to know. Butcherly's eyes were wide open, and he felt like he was on a pirate ship. He just laughed and said. Is it still possible for me to choose to quit now? He is very self-aware. I am not like Wu Ming, who can kill in and out of a group of ghost-faced spiders. Only the ability to spit spider webs, which appears to be so weak that it falls apart. So it's highly likely that I won't pass, so please join the team for the task. If you don't pass, you won't be silenced, will you? What do you think? The eyes of King Kong flickered with a dangerous light. Hee, just a joke, don't take it seriously. Butcherly showed a smile that was more unsightly than crying. Humph. Kong snorted lightly and continued to focus on driving. From beginning to end, Wu Ming sat on the side, holding an attitude of speaking less, making less mistakes, and not saying anything good. He was not surprised by the words of King Kong at all, and even felt that they should be so. From my rich experience in film and television in my past life, before joining any force, a series of tests are essential. If he doesn't even have this sense of caution, then he really needs to consider for himself in the future. As one of the 9 giant cities in China, Liqing has a terrifying defense level to resist the threat of monsters. Silver-white, giant pillars rose from the ground, engraved with various mysterious symbols and symbols. Each giant pillar is separated by no less than 100 meters and surrounds the entire city. There is no traditional brick and stone city wall between giant pillars and giant pillars, but rather clusters of golden flames. From a distance, it looks like a burning scroll stretching across the sky and earth. When this magnificent scene, which only exists in mythological legends, comes into the sight of Wu Ming, he was a bit speechless for a moment. This is simply a miracle. A towering silver-white, giant pillar, and a burning golden flame wall. And the complex and obscure rune symbols that make people dizzy with just a few more glances. All of this is crazily refreshing Wu Ming's worldview. Lee Butcher's performance was not as shocking, and his eyes showed more complex expressions. A city gate has been specially reserved below the flame city wall. At this moment, the sun was about to set, and the crowd entering the city was a bit urgent, as if afraid of something. A few people didn't wait long and soon arrived at the city gate. After seeing King Kong take out his documents, these soldiers armed to the teeth with live ammunition. After a simple identification, let the open line proceed. The vehicle is driving on a wide road. Wu Ming didn't care to appreciate the diverse styles of buildings in the city and quickly raised his doubts. In his opinion, what he had seen before was simply unscientific. Well, it's too unscientific. Upon hearing his question, Divine Arrow smiled and explained. The materials of those giant pillars are not ordinary metals, but a rare resource called scandium. As for those flame walls, they are related to the flame runes on the scandium pillar, which can effectively block the vast majority of extraordinary creatures. Through the narration of Divine Arrow, Wu Ming once again felt the magic of the extraordinary world and couldn't help but yearn for it. As the car moved forward, he soon discovered something strange. On the road that can accommodate more than 10 off-road vehicles driving side by side, not a single vehicle can be seen. Instead, carriages occupied most of the view. Most of these carriages are two-wheeled, pulled by a horse with people sitting behind them. There are also luxurious four-wheeled carriages with heavy carriages, with at least 4 handsome horses in front of them. Shen Jian provided an explanation for Wu Ming's confusion. Originally, due to the rampant presence of extraordinary creatures outside the city, oil extraction became extremely dangerous. Even if there are adventurers, without the presence of powerful superhumans. Most likely, it is also the result of the complete defeat of the army and being buried in the belly of the monster. In this situation, the price of oil has risen to an alarming level. Apart from the official power of the Night Watch, which is backed by the state. Even the vast majority of wealthy individuals dare not say they use vehicles casually during their travels. And leaving the city covers an extremely wide area, relying solely on legs may not even reach the destination after walking for a few days. In this case, the carriage becomes the most suitable means of transportation. Watching carriages, big or small, simple or luxurious, busy shuttling through various streets. Wu Ming suddenly felt a sense of temporal and spatial disorder. About 20 minutes later, King Kong parked his car at the entrance of the Hound detective office. Hound. This name is quite peculiar, doesn't it mean you're a dog? Don't tell me this is the headquarters of the Night Watch Company. It looks a bit unreliable. Wu Ming raised his head and complained crazily in his heart. The entire building is divided into 2 floors, and the exterior decoration style is very simple. Several people got off one after another. Captain, I'll go to the police station first. Without waiting for a response, King Kong stepped on the gas pedal all the way and flew away amidst the screams of passers-by. Cough, 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 ba ba. The dust raised by the wheels made Wu Ming cough and take a mouthful of dust. Driving so fast, may you sooner or later hit the tree. He covered his mouth and nose with his hand while cursing maliciously. However, considering the abnormal physique of King Kong, it is estimated that even if it were to collide, it would be the big tree who would suffer. Li Butcher was also choked heavily, with black and white on his face. A look of daring to be angry and not daring to speak. He's just this impatient person, not targeting you. Divine Arrow chuckled not far away. As soon as the car left, he quickly took a few steps back as prepared. And he took out a handkerchief from his windbreaker pocket to cover his mouth and nose, so only he was not affected among the 3. You're so funny. I don't know if to remind Wu Ming and Li Butcher looked at the Divine Arrow that was spotless and muttered to themselves. Cough, alright, you 2 come with me first. Shen Jian ignored the gruesome gazes of the 2 and pushed open the door of the detective agency first. Upon entering, there is a lobby similar to receiving customers. 3 men wearing white shirts, black pants, and black leather boots are sitting on the sofa playing cards. The room was shrouded in smoke. Facing the door was a young man in his early 20s, with a big back that didn't fit his age. His black hair was shiny, with half a burning cigarette in his mouth. His forehead was extremely full, his appearance was quite handsome, and there was a sense of pride between his eyebrows and eyes. At this moment, the young man was crossing his legs, holding a card in one hand, his shirt half open, and his temperament was free and unrestrained. After hearing the sound of pushing the door, I instinctively glanced at the door. Captain. The young man with his back clearly startled, and the smoke from his mouth fell. He put away the cards and stood up. Judging from his proficiency, I'm afraid he has rehearsed more than once. Damn it, isn't the captain usually coming in from the underground parking lot? Why did he think of going through the main entrance today? The young man with his head back cursed inwardly, feeling somewhat puzzled. The other 2 reacted half a beat slower due to their backs facing the door. After collecting the cards in a slightly flustered manner, he followed suit. Captain. The captain is back. Shenjian nodded slightly in response and raised his wrist to look at the table below. At 5.10, it's already been 10 minutes since work, so. Playing cards doesn't violate the rules and there's no need to write a review. Smelling the smoke all over the room, he frowned slightly and continued. Smoking is not good for the body. A long soothing sound echoed inside the room. The young man with a guilty expression wiped a cold sweat off his forehead. Understood, understood. Noticing Wu Ming and Butcher Li behind the divine arrow, his eyes lit up. Captain, are you new again? At the same time, I suddenly felt that no wonder I had to go through the main entrance. Fortunately, the captain came back late today. If he had come a little earlier, he wouldn't have caught him straight away. The thought of writing a self-criticism makes the young man feel itchy in his head. The other two card players also noticed Wu Ming and his two companions, and couldn't help but show curiosity. Under the undisguised scrutiny of the three young men behind their backs, Wu Ming felt like a monkey in the zoo, feeling uneasy all over. Well, I haven't passed the team entry task yet. I'll take them back to headquarters first, you guys keep an eye on them. Shen Jian didn't explain it to them too much, just gave them a command. Carrying Wu Ming and the other two towards the depths of the office. Firefox, what do you think of these two? Can they pass the team mission? A card player with slightly curled hair turned his gaze to the young man with a back. Because it has been a long time since I was recruited as a new member of the City Watch. So the arrival of Wu Ming and Li Butcher easily aroused their interest. I guess it's difficult. Didn't you notice their clothes? They're mostly from outside the city. Another famous brand friend was a thin and tall man with a slightly sunken nose, watching the three of them leave, shaking his head and saying. Humph, whoever says people outside the city must be weaker than those inside. I think that kid is not easy. The handsome young man habitually touched his smooth forehead and pursed his lips. Oh. How did you tell? The two card players were surprised and curious, asking questions. The young man in front of me, nicknamed Firefox, is usually very proud. Apart from the captain, Divine Arrow, and a few deputy teams, he has rarely served anyone in the Night Watch division outside the city. Is that dirty kid really hiding it? Intuition. Firefox slightly raised its chin and spat out two words. Alright, let's leave them alone for now. Let's continue with the game we played earlier, I only have 3 cards left. The man with slightly curled hair greeted. Firefox's face slightly changed. While the two were not paying attention, quietly took out the previously hidden card from their pants pockets and exerted a slight force on their fingers. Who? With a flash of fire, the cards turned into ashes and floated down lightly. What's the smell? Firefox, you want to play tricks? The man with slightly curled hair looked at the paper dust that had grown out of thin air on the ground. Thinking of the burnt smell just now, I immediately realized it. Who cheated? Do you have any evidence? I warn you not to speak recklessly. The Firefox saw the successful destruction of the body and said with a proud expression. The curly-haired man's face turned green with anger upon seeing this. I'm so tired. It must have been because I didn't sleep well last night. I'll go back and catch up. I'll leave this to you. Firefox disregarded the angry gaze of the other party and leisurely left the front hall. Damn it, he clearly doesn't want to give money. The curly-haired man couldn't help but feel angry and complained to his companions. Oh, forget it, we're all teammates, we can't make it. The companion on the side comforted and said. Besides, you just know what he can do if he wants to default on his debts. It really angers him. With his violent temper, both of us will have to suffer. The curly-haired man felt a chill in his heart upon hearing this, and his anger immediately dissipated. Indeed, besides the captain and a few vice-captains, at the night watch off the city. The strength of Firefox definitely ranks among the top. Chapter 9. Team Entry Tasks. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Shenzhen led Wu Ming and his companions through a corridor to the end of the corridor. This elevator leads underground, and below is the headquarters of the Night Watch Company. It can only be opened with an ID card. You are not yet formal members, I will give you the temporary identity card later. Standing in front of the elevator, Divine Arrow explained to the two. He took out a black card with a silver crescent moon and placed it in the groove. Ding! In Wu Ming's sudden gaze, the elevator door opened and the three of them entered one after another. After a slight sense of weightlessness, when the elevator door opened again, Wu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. A brightly lit hall is presented in view. The indoor area is extremely wide, roughly estimated to be no less than a few hundred square meters, with all kinds of facilities available. Who would have thought that under the unremarkable detective agency, there was a hidden world? Wu Ming was amazed in his heart. A few people in the hall were chatting and immediately stood up when they saw the Divine Arrow. Captain! Captain! Are these all superheroes? It seems that the Night Watch is much stronger than I expected. Wu Ming quietly looked around. Shenzhen nodded and responded one by one, taking the two of them to the office amidst the curious gaze of his teammates. In the captain's office, Shenzhen first briefly explained the regulations of the Night Watch to the two people, then opened the drawer, took out 2 stacks of paper from it, and handed them to the two people. This is the team entry task that you need to complete next, with detailed instructions and a deadline of 1 month. The Night Watch Company will not provide any assistance to you, and you must complete it independently. Once approved, you can officially become a member of the Night Watch Company. With a nervous heart, Wu Ming picked up the stack on the table that belonged to him and carefully looked at it. The task description is roughly in a villa in the Eastern District. Recently, there have been frequent incidents of servants missing, causing panic among everyone in the villa. The police have visited multiple times to investigate, but have not found the cause. The task client is the female owner of the villa, hoping to find out the reason and provide compensation. It's okay. Wu Ming felt a little relieved. He thought it would be a dangerous mission to kill extraordinary creatures. These 2 days of experience have made Wu Ming realize clearly the weakness of his own strength. Even with the awakening of the double blade skill now, it is probably difficult to defeat monsters like the cannibal sandworm. Li Butcher's face was not too conflicted, and it seemed that the difficulty of the task was not very high either. Captain, where are we staying next? After flipping through it, Wu Ming looked up and asked the most concerning question at the moment. These past 2 days have been a series of battles, not only with tattered clothes and a disheveled face. There is a strange smell all over my body. He can't wait to take a hot bath and have a good night's sleep now. Moreover, with its current image, let alone completing the task. You have to be arrested by the police as a homeless person when you go out. Captain. Noticing that the captain looked like a sculpture with dull and lifeless eyes, Wu Ming couldn't help but be surprised and called out again. Well, I'm listening. The Divine Arrow responded, and the deep blue eyes regained their radiance. The rooms are all ready for you. Here are your temporary identification cards, so you don't have to worry about food. There is a dedicated chef here. It's getting late, go back early to rest. Shenzhen picked up 2 ID cards from the table and smiled as he handed them to the two people. The considerate attitude moved Wu Ming to tears. Yes, Captain. After gently closing the door, the two people who had narrowly escaped collapsed their shoulders and completely relaxed. Feeling indescribable exhaustion all over. Wu Ming looked at Butcher Li, extended his fist, and raised the corner of his mouth, saying, "Uncle, come on. Looking forward to fighting with you again." With the experience of fighting side by side during the day, his relationship with Butcher Li inexplicably grew closer. Looking at the fist in front of him, Butcher Li grinned and forcefully hit it. Wu Ming took out his room card and, with a pleasant ringing, the white alloy door slowly opened. Turn on the switch in the dark, and the soft light comes on. In view, the entire room is about 100 square meters. Silver white walls, soft and comfortable carpets, complete furniture and facilities. At this moment, he seemed to have an illusion of returning to his past life. Compared to here, the place outside the city used to be like a dog's den. No, not even a dog house. Closing the door, Wu Ming took off his tattered clothes. I rushed into the bathroom in a hurry and took a hot shower in pain. Don't even think about it outside the city. 10 minutes later, he walked out comfortably wrapped in a towel. I feel like all the pores in my body are open and incredibly transparent. Walk to the mirror and stand still. A slightly green face of 15 or 16 years old appeared before my eyes. It's much more handsome than the previous one. Is it a standard accessory for travelers? Wu Ming looked at his fair and handsome face in the mirror and couldn't help but sigh. Good night, Wu Ming. Chapter 10. Poison Maker. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wu Ming slept very peacefully that night. At 7 o'clock in the morning, his biological clock forced him to wake up on time. Opening the soft silk quilt, he sat up and touched his groaning stomach. It seems like I didn't eat last night. Wu Ming endured a severe stomach twitch and came to the wardrobe, where he carefully prepared several sets of clothes. This treatment is also too good. Such benefits further strengthened his determination to join the night watch. White shirt, black pants, black leather shoes. After dressing neatly, Wu Ming posed in front of the mirror. One word, cool. The only regret is that there is no stylish black trench coat in the wardrobe. Is it the official team uniform? He secretly guessed. Pushing open the door, Wu Ming walked in a corridor full of metallic texture. He noticed that there was a room door on both sides of the corridor at regular intervals. It should be the room of other official team members. Thinking of this, Wu Ming paused in his footsteps. Do you want to get close to your seniors and ask for advice on joining the team tasks? After careful consideration, he shook his head and gave up. Who knows what kind of temper the other person has and whether they have bad intentions. After all, everyone is unfamiliar. The corridor was not long, and we quickly arrived at the lobby. Wu Ming was surprised to find that the hall was empty, with only a beautiful figure busy with something. Upon hearing the footsteps, Yang Xiaoxiao stopped his work and looked up, unable to help but be taken aback. How handsome! Are you the new night watchman? Yang Xiaoxiao opened her watery big eyes and asked curiously. She is not afraid that Wu Ming is a bad person, because those who can enter here must have connections with the night watch. Yes, I only came yesterday and haven't completed the task of joining the team yet. Wu Ming walked forward with a warm smile. The girl in front of me looks 17 or 18 years old, with a beautiful appearance and extremely beautiful big eyes. He deliberately mentioned the task of joining the team, hoping to see how the other party would react. Perhaps we can learn some details from it. Oh, don't worry, I believe you can definitely pass. Yang Xiaoxiao clenched her pink fist and encouraged. Oh, by the way, my name is Yang Xiaoxiao. You can call me Xiaoxiao. I have been on the night watch for almost 2 years and I am a civil servant responsible for. Wu Ming listened attentively for a long time, but did not hear any useful information, which inevitably made him feel a bit disappointed. However, upon reflection, it is also true that the young girl does not appear to be extraordinary, and it is normal for her to have limited knowledge. By the way, haven't you had breakfast yet? Would you like to have a cup of my latest invention of milk tea first? Without waiting for Wu Ming's agreement, Yang Xiaoxiao turned around and took out several bottles of brightly colored liquid from the glass cabinet behind him. Concentrated and started pounding. Milk tea. A familiar name makes Wu Ming's thoughts drift away involuntarily. Alright, give it a try. Soon, a large cup of beverage was placed on the bar in front of Wu Ming. Is this milk tea? Wu Ming looked at the colorful suspicious liquid in front of him, dumbfounded. Am I unable to keep up with the times? He couldn't help but doubt himself. After all, the current Wu name can be considered a 300-year-old antique. In the hopeful gaze of Yang Xiaoxiao, he hesitated slightly and took a sip. Puff. Wu Ming spewed out from afar. What kind of dark cuisine is this? He extended his tongue and felt an indescribable odor in his mouth. Ha ha ha. A burst of laughter echoed from behind. Wu Ming's expression was not good. He turned around and found out that he was a young man with a back head whom he had seen yesterday. At this moment, he was holding his stomach and laughing uncontrollably. I said you're really brave. Don't you know that the little girl's nickname is Poison Maker? It tastes good, you're laughing at me. Firefox was so happy that his stomach hurt and tears streamed down his face. I had to support the sofa behind me and sit down. Wu Ming's face turned black. Stinky Fox, you're talking nonsense again. Believe it or not, I'll tell old Zheng that I won't give you food again in the future. Yang Xiaoxiao's willow eyebrows stood on end and she called out in a coquettish voice. After speaking, he walked towards the kitchen in a huff. Firefox stopped laughing for a moment and quickly jumped up from the sofa, stopping Yang Xiaoxiao who was about to file a complaint. He arched his hand and begged for mercy. Don't, little girl. I'm just joking with you. Actually, the drink you made is still very delicious, isn't it? Isn't it, kid? He turned his head to look at Wu Ming, his eyes threatening. I didn't expect this kid to look like a dog after cleaning up, almost threatening me, the most beautiful man away from the city. Firefox thought to himself, feeling that his position had been provoked. Noticing the threatening gaze of the young man with his back, Wu Ming chuckled to himself and couldn't help but have a plan in mind. I saw no flaws on his face and explained. Well, I grew up outside the city since I was young and haven't tasted anything so delicious before. I just didn't get used to it. Really? Yang Xiaoxiao wrinkled her cute nose, a bit suspicious. She often hears about how chaotic and impoverished it is outside the city. So when I heard that Wu's name came from outside the city, I couldn't help but feel great pity for his background. Of course it's true, isn't it? Wu Ming glanced around and sneered to himself. That's right, the little girl's craftsmanship is beyond words. Firefox immediately took over the conversation, pounding its chest. Okay, I just made a cup of milk tea and I'll give it to you. Yang Xiaoxiao took out another cup and looked at him with moist eyes. The expression of Firefox froze. Under Yang Xiaoxiao's increasingly unfriendly gaze, Firefox bravely picked up the suspicious-colored milk tea. I fiercely tilted my neck and poured it down. Gudong, after drinking a cup, Firefox kept bulging its cheeks and forcefully swallowing it. Take it on your own. Wu Ming almost couldn't laugh on the side. Dinner is here. Oh, little fox got up early today. Are you sick? Why is your face so bad? A short and sturdy old man pushed a dining cart over. Seeing the pale face of Firefox, he scratched the sparse hair on his head. Oh, I'm fine. Maybe I woke up too early, hissing. My stomach hurts a bit, so I won't have breakfast for now. During his speech, the Firefox crossed its legs and charged back into the room in a strange posture. Looking at his slightly hunched back, Wu Ming silently prayed for him. I hope you won't become a jet warrior later. Breakfast is very rich, with beef stuffing, steamed buns, pies, bread, butter, soybean milk and so on. Wu Ming ate 3 portions of steamed buns and drank 2 bowls of soybean milk. Touching his swollen belly, he was so moved that he wanted to cry. It's been a long time since I ate so satisfying. After greeting the little girl, Wu Ming walked to the entrance of the elevator and opened the door with a temporary ID card. He plans to complete the task of joining the team first.